All right, perfect. So we're recording now. So in today's training session, we're finally going to dive into iList. And today we're going to take a look at the dashboard, contacts, and properties as well. Please, if anybody can't see my screen, make sure you send me a chat message and let me know. But I think it should be good. I am sharing it at the moment. As per usual, by the way, after this training session, like I told you guys last time, it's going to take me a little while to send you the recording. It takes a while to convert, and then for some reason in our office here, in our second office here, the upload is a bit slow. So probably towards the end of the day, I'll send that out, if not tomorrow morning. So I like to start with the agent dashboard here. I'm in Remax, Italy here. I've logged into iList and I'm impersonating one of their agents, Dino De Nobile here. And I wanted to show you guys this. I mean, it's almost like a landing page for your agents. Okay, this is a very, very important place because we hope they will use this page to launch all their activities throughout iBroker. I mean, it does have many calls to action, many links to different parts of the application. Okay, so I'm going to start, at the top here. You see, we have these 4 boxes here, each of them containing a different category of activities they can do in iBroker. In iList. Main one is contacts. The first one is contacts, right? So typically, there's 2 things that agents will mostly do inside of iList, and inside of any CRM, by the way, and that is manage their contacts and manage their properties. Okay, so that's why the first 2 boxes here are contacts and properties. So what can they do here? Right off the bat, they can view all their new leads that they've got. So this number says 368 new leads that they have at the moment. Okay, so new leads that have come in, maybe from the website or from other sources as well. But they can go ahead and view them all by clicking here. They can see their hot contacts. So these are contacts that have a 5-star rating. We're going to talk about them when we look at the actual contact section as well. And of course, they can view all of their active contacts. So basically access the contact section from here. But most importantly, as a quick link, we've added the add contact button. It's a call to action. We call it CTA. So they can go ahead and add a contact right from this page. It should do a pop-up, I believe. No, it takes them directly to the add contact page. Okay, so very, very useful for them to immediately have access to this. As soon as they log into iList, they're going to come to this page. Very useful for them to go ahead and add a contact right away from here. The same thing with properties, so it shows any new buyers they have for their properties. Okay, so if you're listing properties, any agents that have looked at the property or perhaps created buyer matches to that match this property, it's going to actually come up here. As well, any listings that are expiring soon, they can be accessed from here right away. It'll only access those listings, and they will be able to renew them or follow the policy that's set up by the region. And finally shows all their active listings. Okay, and in the brackets, it shows how many of those active listings are exclusive contracts. Okay, so very, very good thing to see here, to kind of get a bearing as to what the ratio is between active, or rather exclusive and non-exclusive listings. They know how much, they know where to direct their efforts first. So aside from that, of course, they can add a property as well from here. So that takes them right to the add listing screen, so they can start filling in the information. And finally, we have buyer matches, right? So for buyer matches, I'm sure some of you guys may know what this is, and we're going to cover this in the next training session next week. But just in a nutshell, if you're working with a buyer, you're basically searching for properties that match that buyer's criteria. What is that buyer looking for in the property they wish to purchase, right? So you create that, and the system will return you properties that match that criteria. So in this case, this agent has 134 properties for his buyer matches. Okay, so it's kind of the opposite of the new buyers that show up for the properties, which are actually buyer matches entered by other agents, which have matched with the properties that this agent has listed. Very, very useful information at a glance for the clients. Actually, for your agents, my apologies. So of course, right below we have how many buyer matches are expiring soon. So any ones that need changing, or renewing, but also gives an idea that if a buyer match is expiring, it means you may have to meet with your client again and perhaps refine the criteria a little bit. It seems it's not exactly an accurate buyer match that they've created, or maybe not a complete one, or maybe it's too detailed and not enough properties are on the market in the Remax market in that region that actually return the results, or return enough results. Okay, so if buyer matches are used correctly, in the end, they should guarantee most of the time that your agents let me rephrase that. Should guarantee most of the time that Remax agents collaborate with Remax agents. That way you, the region, is making the maximum amount of money. Because when it comes to actual dealings with clients, a lot of times it may be opportune to go ahead and sell a property or find a property for a client that ends up being managed by another agent that belongs to a completely different real estate company, right? So Remax, the region, stands to lose up to 50% of their profits, right? Whereas with the buyer matches, it encourages collaboration between your agents so that, as many times as possible, you will make 100% of the potential profit you have there. So again, you can add a buyer match right here as well through the call to action. And on the last box here, we have referrals. So we'll be talking about the referral manager in the next training session as well. And here, if you've created any new referrals, if you've been referred by any agents, it's going to show up here as well. Same thing with requiring attention, right? So if for example, if there's a comment on a referral or a request from either the referring agent or the agent you've referred a client to, then it should show up here and you'll be able to view those in the referral section. And of course, how many active referrals you have going on at the moment. And you can add a referral to from the add referral button. Right below, we have two links to recently listed office properties and recently sold/rented office properties. So this is, it's just meant to give an idea to each agent, how the office is doing, what the activity is like, what kind of listings they're putting up on the website, so they can see kind of what their colleagues are up to, and how, excuse me, how they can proceed. So if we click on this, it should show a pop-up here. There we go. It could give you an idea as to the prices that others are listing for, so if you're listing a similar property, perhaps you should take the price that your colleagues are listing that same similar property at. So it gives a good a bit of information as to the activity of the other members in your office. Same thing goes for recently sold or rented properties. Perhaps you'll congratulate a colleague for doing a good job, for finally selling that pesky property that's been sitting on the market for so long, or also just see the success of your office as well. Okay. So now right below, there's some graphs just to kind of show the performance of the agent, and as well, the incoming leads and contacts, for example. There's two tabs here, leads, contacts, and production, right? So any new leads and buyer matches, right? Red are buyer matches, blue are leads. Excuse me. So this is over a 12-month period. By the way, this is in relatively real time, so as we go into July will be first, and then June will come at the end here, June of 2018, of course. Same thing for new contacts. This is an average graph, as you can see, new contacts per month compared to the office average and the region average. So we can very clearly see this agent is well above average in terms of the new contacts that he's making. So he's very successful at networking. Very good stuff to see. In terms of contact categories, so this is a pie graph here that shows you kind of the breakdown of what types of contacts are being added in the system. Sellers, buyer leads, buyers, others, and Prospect. I'm not sure what this exactly says in Italian. I guess this is a contact category that was added by the agent, something that we will talk about when we actually get to the contact section. So next we have the production graphs. I wanted to show you this one as well. And you can change between sold and rented. Okay, so let's take a look at sold, for example. Well, it seems this agent hasn't done so well in terms of, oh, never mind, I apologize. The average days on market, it actually seems like he's done really well, way better than the office in the region. Although it may be, yeah, it's a zero count, so it may be very clear that he hasn't made any sales of properties. My apologies. Yeah, so as we can see, your listing sold. So he hasn't actually sold a listing in a long time, but if we go to rented, we can see that he's done quite a few rentals. Well, actually, he's got 107 average days on market as well. So perhaps, yeah, he's only rented one listing. So this agent's performance, not the best in the past year or so. So aside from this, on the top, we have a contact search. So the agent can very quickly search for throughout their contacts database as well. And they can add new activities to the agenda. And finally, and a very useful set of links here on the side is the recently viewed. So it's not just recently viewed properties, it's recently viewed activities, let's call them that way. It's an activities in iList here. I mean, we've got listings that he's taken a look at. We can tell by the MLS IDs here, as well as contacts and leads that he's taken a look at. And of course, buyer matches that he's created. We can see he made a couple of test ones to see how it works. Okay, so they can print reports as well from here. So if they ever need to print any of these reports here, they can easily do so. So any questions before we actually move on to the contact section? I'll give it a minute or so. Seems pretty straightforward, this dashboard. It's going to be a nice tool for your agents. Yep. Everybody seems to be good to go. So we'll go ahead with the contact section. We'll start with the contact search here. It's great to have contacts, but if you don't have a good way to access those contacts, then it's no good, right? So we have an advanced search as well. It's exactly what I wanted to show you. You can search by the rating of the contact. Again, rating something we'll talk about in a second. You can search by last name, first name, contact information like phone, and address as well. You can filter it out by contacts only or leads only or both, of course, the public and the private ones. And in terms of contact categories, you can search for, all or any, right, depending on which ones you select here. You see these, actually in Italy, there's a lot of contact categories. I'm going to show you that as well. And of course, hit search, and we have a nice table here that sorts them by rating, added, I guess the added date, address information, as well as communication and the name of the owner as well. Okay, so very good search to have here. And you can also see deleted contacts. And by the way, let me actually do a search. This might take a while because agent's got about 3,000 contacts. So this is where the agents would use this contact search a lot is, take, for example, if they're working with investors. This is actually a very good example. If they're working with investors, then those investors will trust that the agent will contact them anytime there's any developments in the market. And by developments, I mean any changes, any new, let's call them juicy properties that come on the market, perhaps. Well, in that case, you can filter by your investor category that you've created as an agent and select all your investors. Okay, and then you can do something like, mail merge, so start marketing to them, or sending an email. You can run reports as well if you want to. You can print contacts and so on. Okay, so there are things that could be done there. Now, it's very important to understand in the contacts section, we categorize them as either contacts or leads. Okay, so of course we can we can access all the contacts from the left side menu here, or all the leads, or we can actually go ahead and search. But if you click just on the main contacts word, that will take you right over to the contact search. Okay. So if we take a look at a new contact, and actually, you know what? Let's take a look at an existing contact, because it does have an extra tab compared to just adding a contact. And of course, being in a live environment here, I would hate to actually add a real contact for this agent. Okay, so we'll take a look at this contact here. All right. So this is what I wanted to show you here. When you finish adding a contact and you actually save a contact, well, it doesn't matter if it's a contact or a lead, okay, you're going to get the overview tab added here, as well as the documents tab. Okay, so these do not appear when you first add the contact, only when you edit the contact or you access the contact's information. All right, so if we look on the overview tab, think of it as the dashboard for this contact. Okay, so the agent can go ahead and start working on this contact right from this overview tab. Okay, of course, if they need to edit information, they'll have to move on from here. But I mean, look at all the options you've got from here, right? You have the rating of this contact, so you can give them a rating. Now, I want to talk a bit about the rating because it is a good tool to kind of measure how close the contact or the lead is to maybe moving to a next stage. So for example, from a lead to a contact, how close they are to buying or selling, you know, or let's call it in general, to making a transaction, right? So the agents can play around with this rating. This rating isn't like your Uber rating to say, okay, this contact is bad, I don't want to deal with them. It's just to give the agent an idea of how close they are to performing a transaction. So if you train your agents, definitely mention that last part, because you know, it's extremely important. It's a tool that's been requested by many regions. So it's a tool that is being used to great success throughout the Remax world. So aside from that, we have basic information over here about the contact, you know, how to actually reach them. We have any upcoming activities. You know, in this case, there are no scheduled activities for this customer. So, you know, you have a call to action here, schedule one now. Look at that. Even if I click outside of new activity, it's going to open it up. So it's very very intuitive like that. You know, has the picture of the contact that you may have added in the picture tab. Any quick notes you can add right here, and they will stay here so you can access them the next time you take a look at this one contact. You can add buyer matches. You can start marketing to this contact. You can record activities. You know, you can schedule follow-ups. You can do a print of this contact, so actually print the entire contact information, and then you can do an activity report. Okay, so if you're an agent and you're working with a contact, or you're working with a buyer or seller, let's say you're working with a seller, right? And you know, a month passes, you've sold this property. And then he says, well, I mean, it doesn't feel like you've done anything, Mr. Agent. You know, my property feels like it sold itself in the last month. I mean, I certainly haven't seen you do anything. We haven't met that many times, right? So at that point, your agent can print out this activity report and show them a list, you know, chronologically, right, with all the stuff that they've worked on, all the effort they've put into actually selling that property for the agent, for the seller, okay? So it's a very, very good one. Now the buttons at the bottom here, so the iMarketing, print contact, close contact, and save contact, these buttons stay on the screen as you move through all the tabs. So again, further call to action for the agent to get things done with this client. So if we move on to the general tab, we have quite a bit of information here that the agent can go ahead and enter. And notice on the right side, you know, like I said, first of all, we have the buttons that stay on at the bottom, but also on the right side, we have this little window here that's kind of attached that, again, has call to actions for follow-ups, for new activities to be scheduled. You know, it can even be hidden if they want to, but by default, it shows up. And of course, here we have a source. So this would be the lead source. Where did this lead come from? I do believe, no, this is an actual contact. So had they selected the source of the lead when they first added the lead, it would stay here just to show you kind of where you got your business from, you know, in terms of this one potential client. Once again, you can give them a rating over here. So below you can fill out his or her basic information. It's a gentleman here, so it's I'm inclined to say he. You know, their first, last name, their company. By the way, this is something that was actually discovered just yesterday by myself and my manager, Rob. So, you know, because we were wondering, I mean, if, you know, companies are required field in this case by the region. So if you're adding a residential contact, you know, somebody that's trying to buy a house or sell a house, then, you know, you're not going to necessarily know the company they work for, the company they belong to, right? It's actually an option in the iList regional administration, which we're going to take a look at in a later training session, that it's either or. So it's either first, last name or company, right? So you don't have to fill out the company. At least that's what we found out from the iList team the other day. So aside from this type of information, you can select to have the contact be public. So in the vast majority of cases, it's not a good idea to make the contact public. You know, I mean, you don't want other agents taking your contacts, right? It's akin to having an open contract, kind of with the client, right? I mean, another agent can take your contact and go and you know, talk to them, right? That may not necessarily be the best way to go about it. Now, that being said, if your agent is using a contractor, for example, actually the best example for this, if your agent is using, say, somebody that's really good with drones, with filming, you know, with photos, right? If they're using a photographer / filmmaker to create videos for their listings, you know, perhaps, you know, they want to refer that person to other agents in his office or her office, right? So in that case, sure, you can go ahead and make them public. You know, but buyers, sellers, your leads, your bread and butter, it's not a good idea to make them public. At least that's our GrifTech recommendation. Of course, you can transfer the contact to another agent as well from here. And before we scroll further down the page, let's take a look on the right side here, because we have some, you know, a couple of very important boxes here. So first one is the contact categories. Now, if you take a look here, I don't know if my color scheme is the best or if you can tell the difference between the colors here. It's actually quite difficult even for me. So I may have to adjust my monitor in the future. But the black contact categories, like this one right here, prospect per affiliazioni. So that one is an agent category, right? So that means the agent hit add new category and added the category in. Okay, so that's all it takes. You type in a word, hit save, and it's added here. Okay, the blue ones, like these here, bilocali, trilocali, box autos, so on, those are office. So the office can go in and create these contact categories as well. And finally, the red ones, like seller, buyer, lead buyer, and so on, those are the system ones. The ones that are by default, they're already in there. Okay, so I believe actually the region has a say in which categories actually show up there as well. So if you're training your agents, we strongly suggest that you train them on using this feature very well, this categories feature, because, you know, like the example I gave earlier with the investors, right? It's a very good way to kind of separate your contacts into categories, so you can filter them very easily, basically. Okay, and finally, the quick notes at the bottom there. The agent is able to take any quick notes that they may need for this client. Of course, we have the address information here for the contact as well, and the types of communication. So how do you reach this client? I was having a conversation actually with my manager Rob yesterday, and he was highlighting the importance of at least our recommendation, you know, of making the email address a mandatory field in a required field here. So, by the way, every time I say something about making a field required, you do have that option in iList Regional Administration. Once again, we're going to cover that in a future training session. Okay, so you're going to see that coming up. I just don't want you guys to have questions about where you're going to do that. So the whole idea of the email address is in every industry and in everything we do, there's always those very few people that don't exactly play by the rules, right? So, as a region, you want to think about how you can protect yourself, how you can make the most profit, um, obviously in an ethical manner, right? But a lot of times, for example, okay, not a lot of times, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It's been reported to us before that an agent will go and cancel a listing when actually what happened is they sold it, right? But they'll go cancel it, and basically close the contact and not report the commission, right? So basically that leaves the office losing out on profits, and that leaves the region losing out on profits. So in this case, if they haven't entered an email address or any contact information for this contact, unfortunately for you, there's no way to verify that this listing was canceled. But if they do have a phone number or an email is usually the best, and the region can send a friendly email and say, we're sorry to see that you've canceled your listing with us. Is there any reason? And we'd like to see what we can do in the future to do better. Basically, something along those lines. At least you can contact this client, right, and see what happened. And typically, if the agent tried something like that, then the client would probably respond saying, no, the agent was really good. He actually sold my house. I paid him the commission, and then the office and or the region can take the necessary steps, right? So this is one example of how you can protect yourself just by making that email a required field. Of course, we have a description here. So if it's a good practice sometimes to write, don't call his cell during these hours he's working, he's in meetings, or don't call his home after 8 p.m. It's going to make him angry. That sort of information is always good. So at last, at the bottom, any buyer matches that are existing for this contact is going to show up here in this table. And the only thing you don't see here is the actual lead, the lead source and lead tracking box, because this is a contact. It's already been converted into a contact. Basically what it is, it's a pipeline that we've created. So the one drop-down list that shows the lead state, right? So where the lead is at, is it a cold lead? Is it anywhere near to transacting? Do you need to turn into a contact, and so on? It also shows the lead source over there as well. Perhaps let me actually show you that, because it is important. I don't want to just talk about it. We'll to add a new contact. There we go. So there it is, the lead stages. Yeah, so you can change the stage too, and you see here all the different stages that we have. I know that we are going to be making some changes to this to kind of compress it a little bit. So we have a more how should I say, I don't say compressed, but a more direct lead pipeline, right? So at the moment, you have everything from cold leads to looking to buy, looking to rent, looking to sell, made offers, and so on. If they agreed a listing contract, and take a look in the brackets. It says if you select this stage, it's going to turn this lead into a contact, and so on. Okay, and it goes all the way to sale agreed. Right, so you can definitely track those. You can add a follow-up, you can put some lead history in here, so kind of the progress notes, so to speak. And of course, you can select the lead source from here as well. Okay, so that's very quickly what I wanted to show you. All right, so next we have the address and phone number tabs. So, you may ask yourselves, there's already an address and phone number, a section on the general tab. Why do we have this? You can only add one address here, right? So if there's more than one address for this agent, or excuse me, for this client, then the agent can enter them in here. You can add more than 3 types of communication or ways to reach this contact here as well. So that's the main purpose here, in case you're wondering. Next, we have the properties/MLS buyer match tab. So basically, again, depending on what type of contact this is, if they're listing properties with you, all the properties they're listing that they're actually connected to that property, they'll be listed over here. And of course, if they're a buyer, then all the buyer matches, all the listings that match the buyer criteria are going to be shown in the MLS buyer match section at the bottom here. Okay, so that way they can be easily accessed. If you're doing work on this contact, chances are you're on this screen already. So why not have everything to do with that contact all in one place instead of having the agent flying all over the application? So that's at least our idea of a good user interface. Next, we have activities. So any activities related to this contact are going to show here, both past and present. There's also notes, and family notes here that you can enter, like, things to break the ice. If you haven't seen a contact in a long time, it's a good idea when you first meet them, maybe talk about family a bit, and make some notes here. His daughter's graduating university in 2 years. You talk to him 2 years later. Hey, how'd your daughter do in university? She graduated yet? Right? Ways to help the client socialize with contacts. Any help with that personal touch will definitely go a long way. Next, we have the picture. Most exciting tab here. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. I highly doubt that we have any contacts with pictures. I'm sure there are some, but the whole idea here is, hopefully in the future, we're gonna have some type of integration with Facebook or social media, so that some of this contact information, obviously with the client's permission, could flow freely into here. But of course, don't quote me on that. That's the idea we have for the future. And we'll see how and when we get there. And of course, you'll find out as well. Finally, we have the Documents tab. So you're able to upload documents, of course, property documents. Actually, these are from the properties that they're associated with. And any personal documents you can upload here, like perhaps, listing agreement or contract, or what kind of documents you require your agents to use. So they can be uploaded on the contact as well. Okay, so this is basically it about contacts. Any questions? Anything you'd like to clarify? We'll give it a couple minutes here for you guys to type if you do have questions. Neve, I was gonna do the agenda tomorrow. Tomorrow on the next training session. Agenda doesn't take long, but properties will take a bit longer. Actually, if you'd like, I can convene with you after the training session, and we'll answer the question about the agenda as well. Okay. Well, we'll see. Maybe we have time today. It depends. Right. I know there's, I believe there's another call booked after at 10 o'clock. Same situation as on Tuesday. I do apologize about that. But yeah, I'll send you an email. We'll see how the training session goes. Okay. So yeah, I'll go ahead and jump into properties. So we have a couple options here. Of course, we can take a look at all the properties that we've added. We can search for properties, and of course, we can add a new one. Let's take a look at the property search first. Right, so we can do a listing search, and of course, search for transaction data. But we'll stay on the listing search, show you kind of the options that you have available to yourself. Right, so you can do generally, you can search by sales associate. You can search by, the listing information itself, like is it residential or commercial, MLS number, lots and lots of parameters here. You can search by geodata, by property types and categories, and, price ranges, bedrooms, area ranges, and so on. And this, by the way, searches your region here as well. Okay, so you can do a property search like that. Next, we have, I want to show you we're going to look at an actually added properties, because again, once you save the property, you get extra tabs. So I want to make sure I go through everything here. However, let me show you what happens when you add new property, because if we just look at an existing property, we're not going to see this screen. Okay, so when you hit new property, there are 3 settings that are set in stone that you have to select here. Okay, and that's the property type, contract type, and location. So the reason behind this is, of course, for commercial versus residential, it's going to change some of the fields that appear, and of course, it's going to change some of the fields that are required when you add a property. It's not going to be anything you won't be able to figure out what they are. Okay, so there's no need to show you a commercial and a residential property. I'm going to show you an actual residential property because it's the most common one that your agents are going to use. Next is for sale and for rent, so the type of contract here. Same thing, different fields are required or different fields will appear. Some may not make sense for rent as they would for sale, and so on. And finally, the location, is it a local listing or are you listing in a foreign country? Is the idea. Okay, so again, I don't want to add any kind of listing here because this is the live environment. So, okay, let's take a look at this listing. Let's see what we have here. Hopefully it's a residential listing. I didn't. Perfect, it's a condo. Good. So we're going to bring it up on the website as well so we can take a look at it as we go through it. So, of course, the overview tab is, as with contacts, the overview tab is one that does not appear when you add the actual property. So only once you save it does it show up, because it takes some of the information you've entered and puts it all together with lots and lots and lots of calls to action underneath. Okay, very, very important. Now, once again, just as with contacts, the agent has the opportunity to do everything they need to do in regards to a property from the property screen. Okay, so we want to keep them here. We want to give them all these options right away. So first of all, at the top, what do we see here? We have the owner contact that we can access. And let me make a bit of a special mention about iList here, a bit of praise. Okay, one of the defining factors of this CRM here, this customer relationship management system, that's what iList is connecting contacts to properties. Okay, it's extremely important that you have that connection coming in. Okay, it flows very nicely. You start out with the contact, eventually you add the property. You can always access the contact from the property and the property from the contact. So no matter how the agent is working in here, they have a clear path that they're following. It's not like they have to think about where to go next and what to do. Okay, it really helps with efficiency here. So they see the thumbnail from their the property. They see the price underneath. They can view it on the website. Take a look at what it looks like. You can do a quick edit as well. Okay, shows some stats here, like the average, like the days on market for this property is 156 days. The number of leads have come in for this property. All the potential buyers. Okay, that's from buyer matches. And of course, web page views. So how many times it's been viewed on the website. So unfortunately, this has not been viewed at all on the website. Of course, it shows the listing status. It's active, it's residential. It's for sale, the property type, some information about it. And at the bottom, look at all the options that the agent has here. Okay, they can print a brochure with this listing, right? So with all the listing information, the picture as well. They can start marketing. Okay, so if they have a bunch of contacts that they feel are would be interested in this listing, they can start marketing right to them. Okay, they can view similar properties for sale, similar sold properties. Okay, the competition, how the competition has been successful in the past. Okay, they can schedule a follow-up right here. They can book a viewing. So in the agenda, they can add an open house. Again, an agenda item. They can upload documents here that are related to the property. They can search for buyers, right, using the buyer match feature. And then, of course, they can do a listing activity report. So once again, just like with the contact activity report, if for the same reason, if the client feels like the agent hasn't done much and they sold their property quite easily, and if they have any kind of dispute as to how much effort the agent has put in, then they can the agent can come in here, print off this report and send it to the client and say, look at all the work I've done for you. This is what you're paying me for. Okay, so all very good stuff. Very similar to the contact section. We have these buttons at the bottom that will stay throughout all the tabs. They're stuck on the screen. Similar properties for sale, similar sold properties, start marketing, find a buyer, print brochure. Okay, all extremely important calls to action. So let's take a look at some of the information that is captured here. Right away we have the listing status, right? This if you hit this button here, the pencil button, you can change that from active to canceled or expired or sold. Okay. We have the original listing date and we have the expiry date. So it looks like it's going to expire in July. The expiring period, by the way, and the expiry date can be set in the regional administration, iList regional administration section. So the region has access to that and can set that up. And of course, the approval status. So if you remember in the previous training session, we were talking about that platform setting called listing approval workflow, the kind of quality assurance for listings. Well, if an agent adds a listing and it is denied for any reason, it's going to show here denied. And I believe it shows a reason as well, or they can access it. If it's approved, it shows that it's approved. They know to check it out on the website, basically. They know it should be live on the website. All right. Next, we have the owner information. So you can attach your contacts here. I'm not sure if you can see on your screen here, but you can view the contact info. You can select a contact for the property. So if you hit the select a contact, you can actually search through your contacts database and attach a contact to this property. Very important. And obviously the contact has a lot more information, but what is evident here? The email address, right? One of the most convenient ways to contact somebody these days. I mean, I can't think of a more convenient way to contact somebody without actually bothering them, right? So the friendliest way to contact somebody by email, they answer whenever they get a chance, whenever they see it. You can schedule a follow-up right from here as well. And if we hit more, then you can add additional owners as well. Okay, so if it's a husband and wife, you can add them both on there. Next, we have pricing information. So you can enter the price in here, and of course you can select any of the currencies that are available in your region that your region has selected. So the region does have the option of selecting multiple currencies to list their properties in. We're going to talk about that in a different training session, though. Next, we have let's see, maintenance fee, any additional costs that are incurred by somebody who would purchase this property can be listed here as well, like a maintenance fee or parking costs and so on. You have multiple ways of setting this up. Not just by time period, but also by area. By area and time. So many different options. And of course, any other expenses, you have a free text field here that you can even enhance like this. Okay, and you can enter that in for future reference, basically. There's also the listing selling commission and then the requested from buyer commission. Okay, so by the way, there's tooltips here if you have any questions as to what this means. But one of the things that are quite useful basically is to make these required, the listing and or selling commission. Again, it comes down to the same, actually it's not necessarily that it's a required field, but to make it a key field. And the reason you want to make it a key field is because somebody comes in here and changes this after the fact, and then they close the deal, right? So they set it to sold. Well, they could, or rather you, the region and the office could miss out on some of this commission. Okay, notice the change history button here. I was going to get to it, but I guess this is as good as time as any. I click the change history button. So this is actually part of, I believe, and Janet, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is part of the listing approval workflow feature or a platform setting. So
the history?
Yes.
No, the history is always there for all regions.
Okay, that's excellent then. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. So the change history, I mean, it shows you so much important information, right? Like the status change. Okay, so you can audit who changed the status. It says who was changed by the date and time. So this is a date and time stamp from the servers. Nobody can edit this. Nobody can mess around with this in any way, shape, or form. So very important audit information, same as pricing changes and key fields history. So this is what I meant by key fields. If you make the listing commission a key field, then you're going to be able to see when and who changed these key fields, not just the commission, right? When the commission's sense, you can double check that afterwards, right? So you have some track of what happened here. Okay, so things to consider when going through iList regional administration. Aside from this, we have property information. So the status is somebody living there. Is it occupied by a tenant or an owner, or is it a vacant? Okay, is it an advanced shell? So is it close to building or to being finished building? Is it converted from something else? Right. So many, many, many different statuses that you can select. You can select a category as well. Like for example, this is how you make it a Remax collection or a Remax commercial listing that would show up in those two. If you remember, we talked about these in the last training session. And of course, there's new developments. I'm not sure if the terminology is the same across the world. I would imagine it is, since we added it in here. But for us, a new development is when they basically buy a huge piece of empty land and they start building hundreds of homes on it, right? So if you select a new development, if we take a look at the bottom here, we have a development drop-down list. And all the registered developments, for example, in this case within Italy, you can go ahead and select which development it actually is.
Can I just mention that's actually
Yes.
linked to a platform setting that Ireland doesn't have active, or if I believe Tanzania doesn't have active either.
Yep, not a problem. Thank you so much, Janet. So, guys, like I mentioned in previous training sessions, if you see something here that you do not see on your platform, it's probably a platform setting. So in that case, contact Janet if you're interested in it or if you want to hear more about it. And, you can make a decision with her if you want to go ahead and add that to your platform, okay? Next, we have property type, of course. So we were talking last time about property types, or I believe in the first training session. I can't remember now. But we were talking about the property types and how, on the website, when you search for property, the clients get access to the macro property types, right? And then we have the detailed property types. Well, these are the detailed property types. They are in depth. These are meant for those who have a more intimate knowledge of the real estate industry, right? And can make the correct selection, whereas a client may not have that type of knowledge. So in here, your agents will be able to select the different property types. One thing that you need to make sure of as a region is that in regional administration, all of these detailed property types are actually associated to a macro property type. Okay, because if one of these is not, for example, if let's say the farm, or okay, maybe a cottage or a country home, right, isn't connected to, say, the villa macro property type, just a wild example. Okay, then when somebody is searching online for a villa, then your agent's listing that selected cottage or country home is not going to show up in search results. Okay, so it's important. Next, we have market status, whether it's used, whether it's a new build, if it's coming soon or a best deal, and so on. So depending on what you select here, you may see a banner across the actual thumbnail on the website. So that is possible. I believe and Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear I saw it on the website, coming soon and best deal and new build or new to the market. I'm pretty sure I've seen those banners.
So best deal is also a platform setting.
Okay.
New to the market, yes, it's a tag that's put on the photo.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Foreclosure is a platform setting. Best deal is a platform setting.
Yeah, I do remember seeing those in the platform setting.
And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So next, you have an available date as well. So, if somebody, if there's a specific date when a tenant is moving out, for example, you can specify that in there. Some more details about the actual property. It's very straightforward and self-explanatory there. In terms of land itself, what the land use is for, as well as the categories as well for land itself, energy efficiency and so on. That is a platform setting as well, I'm pretty sure, but some countries require it. Okay, and at the bottom, the representing agent can be set up as well. Oh, and of course, how could I forget this attachment here that gives you more information, right? So some of the overview information shows up on here. Of course, once, just like with the context, you can hide it or open it back up. So as we don't have a lot of time left, I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to speed through these, but these are actually going to go a lot faster, the rest of the tabs. So first of all, for location, we've got the show address on public websites. So let me start with that. Unless it's an exclusive contract, okay, make sure this is unchecked. You don't want to show, the agent does not want to show the address on the public website if it's not an exclusive contract. Why? Because another agent, not necessarily a Remax agent, can go and find this address, go and knock on the door and steal the listing. Okay, so the reason this is checked here by this agent is because his, this exclusive listing. It's an exclusive contract for this listing. Okay, but other than that, go ahead and enter, the information, the address information here. We have all the geodata that you can select here, as well as entering the street name, street address, floor, and so on. You can also bring it up on the map, so you have the latitude and longitude. If you don't know how to figure out the latitude and longitude for Google Maps, the tooltip tells you to go to this itouchmap.com/latlong. I've never actually tried that. And to be honest, I've only discovered this tooltip yesterday when I was preparing for today's training session. I've always been used to just actually going to Google Maps. And I can't remember if I've shown you this before, but you can just click on Google Maps. And it's gonna, yeah, I did show you this when we did the office profile overview in the very first training session. If you go to Google Maps, find the address. If you just click on the Google map at the bottom here, it's gonna show you the latitude and longitude, and you can enter it in here if you like. But I mean, I'm not gonna take it away from this website here, okay? Try it out as well. Finally, you can enter at the bottom here some location and community information. So think of this as the description kind of, but not of the listing. This is a description of the neighborhood, what it's like to live there. Okay, so it's like a mini area guide in a way, right? For what it's like to live in that community. So it is a very good tool because, I mean, it's one of the first things that clients will look at, right? If, even if you don't put this on the website, I mean, if I'm going to buy a house, one of the first things I look at before even considering any listings, I'm going to take a look at the neighborhood. Does it have some nice schools? Is it a safe neighborhood? Can my kids walk home from school safely? That sort of thing, right? So you'll want to write what the neighborhood is about, and you have it available here in your local language as well as English. Okay, of course, it doesn't have to be in English as well. It can be only in your local language. It's actually not a mandatory field as well, at all. So it doesn't have to be filled out, but it is a very good idea that it's taken care of. Next, we have the description. So in case you're wondering, this is the description right here, okay? And by the way, the community information would actually be listed just below the description if it was entered. In this case, the agent hasn't filled that out. So we have the listing title, right? Santa Rita for Locale Ampio. There's the listing title right here. Okay, and I believe, no, it's just this one over here. By the way, the address that the agent has entered is listed here as well, right underneath the price and the title. And of course, we have the description. If your agents speak multiple languages, we encourage and recommend them to enter the description in multiple languages. Of course, that depends on their knowledge of how many foreign buyers they get as well. So also something to be considered. But of course, they can add additional descriptions through here. You hit add description, and you get to select the type of description. So whether it's the listing title or the description itself, and in what language, right? So you get to select your language here as well. Finally, you're able to upload a PDF brochure and a floor plan as well. And in case you're wondering, we have the PDF brochure here, and the floor plan shows up as one of the buttons underneath the pictures here. Okay. Oh, and the map, if you hit Street View, if you hit Map, you'll be able to bring up the Google Map here to see it. And Street View is, I'm sure everybody knows what Street View is from Google Maps or Google Earth. If not, it's the little yellow man. You can check it out. It's how I've seen most cities around the world without actually traveling there. Next, we have rooms and features. So features are probably one of the most important aspects of a listing. We've talked about this in the first training session. The features appear at the bottom here. The more you put, the more it describes the listing. Okay, the more it describes the listing when a foreign buyer comes to to see your listing page here, and they don't speak your local language, and your description is only in your local language, and Google Translate doesn't do a good job of translating that, right? But I mean, look how many features this agent has selected for this listing, right? So if I go and I choose any language here, okay, then I will get a very good idea of what this listing is about just from this list of features here. Okay, so very, very extremely important to fill that out as much as possible. By the way, of course, these are not all the features. If I'm not mistaken, these are your 15 searchable features they have here, but I may be wrong. It may also be the 15 most popular ones. If you hit Show More, then you will see all the features that have been enabled through regional administration and iConnect. Okay, so just hit Show More if the agent doesn't see their feature that they desire in there. And then, scrolling down, you have access to many, many, many more features that they can select from. Next, we have the rooms. Okay, so all the rooms in the house, of course, the only thing that is required for Italy in this case is the total number of rooms, the bedrooms, and the bathrooms. Beyond that, there's no requirement. But of course, underneath, agents can go ahead and enter all the different rooms with descriptions and area, surface area, and everything. Okay, and I'm actually glad I picked this listing because sometimes they don't fill any of these out and I don't get to show them in my training sessions. But take a look. Okay, you have all the rooms and the actual descriptions that the agent has written. Now, obviously these descriptions are in the local language. I guess they could write it in another language as well. In here, I'm not sure if there's a maximum character limit here, but I'm sure they can figure out a way. Now, by the way, the Add New Room button is at the bottom here. You can delete rooms from here as well. So I want to jump a little bit to photos just so we can make this connection. So with photos, of course, you can add all your photos and you can click and drag and drop to change the orders of the photos. And then if you click on a photo, let's click on this one. So you have a pop-up and you're able to crop this photo. You're able to see it a full screen. And also one of the things that we determined, by the way, from one of the previous training sessions, you all see the watermark here. And Neve from Island mentioned that he doesn't see the watermark. That's because it's an actual platform setting. Okay, so if you want the automatic watermark to be added, then talk to Janet about that. But what you can do is give a name to the image. And then the reason I skipped all the other tabs and came here first is because you can associate a photo to the room. So you can take it a step further. Okay, so aside from the fact that you've got all these rooms, you've done all this work, why not put a photo beside them as well? The photos would show up here if I'm not mistaken. It's very nice to have a complete listing. That's what I say. So next, you have your alternate URLs. So if there's a virtual tour, if there's a YouTube video, or any other URL that makes sense for this listing, they will appear underneath the photos over here as well. Okay, and of course you can purchase multimedia tours from here if that's something you like to do. So let me go back there and cover the other 3 tabs that I've skipped. We have the activities tab, which shows all the activities that have occurred in regards to this listing, or any upcoming activities like open houses and so on. And of course, we have a note to sales associates. So this is only going to appear on the MLS intranet. Okay, so these are actually visible to other sales associates, right? So very, very important distinction between this note section and this note section right here, which is the private notes. Okay, and notice how you have to add a note in order to actually to enter it in. Actually, I'm not sure if, yeah, it does let you to just type in here. The add note, what it does is it puts a date stamp for you. Okay, same here. So if I go add note, look at that. It even put the actual time for me. Okay, I'm going to delete that for the agent. So, it makes it easy because when we take notes, we tend not to put a timestamp. And in hindsight, I mean, how useful is that timestamp, right? It's very helpful to know when you made those notes. Next, we have contacts. So just like how on the contacts section, we have their properties and their buyer matches listed there. Well, same here on the listings page, it makes sense to have the contacts listed here as well. So the owners, as well as any leads and contacts related to this listing, you can easily access them. And of course, any leads and contacts from other agents that make sense in regards to this listings. Okay, so for example, buyer match emails, right? Katia Merlino here has basically sent this property as a buyer match to one of her contacts. So you cannot see the contact here, but you can see the agent. You can contact the agent and be like, hey, what did your client think about this listing? Can we perhaps, do you guys want to come by for an open house? We got one on this date, right? So actions can be taken from within the listing. That is the underlying value of iList. Okay, and the same thing can be said for the contacts section. Next, we have financial tab. So typically the financial tab is something that was requested by a number of regions. Nothing in here is mandatory. I'm not going to spend any time going over this. All I'm going to say is if you want, there's room for some extra information to be captured in here. If you'd like your agents to do any of this, then, speak to them in training, instruct them what to enter in here, and if they want to do this, like mortgage and appraisal information, any registration and other costs, financial notes, and so on. Okay. Next, you have portals. So if you'd like to configure any export portals, like listing portals for your region, or for this agent, or for this, for this listing to go on, then that's something you need to speak to your account manager with. And finally, we have documents. Okay, so any documents that have anything to do with this listing, you can go ahead and upload them in here. Okay, and you can also create some templates here as well. So this is it for listings. That's all I've got to tell you. Is there any questions, anything I can answer before we go ahead and convert this recording? So for the properties that are sold, canceled, or expired, is there a way to remove those properties from the system completely and not just showing the listing status? I believe, and Jenna, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that's something you can do out of iList Regional Administration, if I remember correctly. But I do know there's a setting in there that says how long expired or sold listings show up on the actual website.
No. That's there's a set setting that cannot be changed. It's the same for every region.
Okay.
So sold listings are on the website for 30 days, and then they get removed. Expired, they don't show on a website.
They shouldn't, right?
No,
and how
they
about
don't.
canceled ones? They shouldn't show on the
Cancelled
website.
don't show on the website either.
Okay.
Expired, like what happens normally when a listing is about to expire, the region sets a date, like this is the region login, sets a date in iList Regional Admin as how long they want before the status changes automatically from active to expired. As soon as the status changes, that listing gets removed from the website until the agent takes action again.
And with regards to the system itself, like from iList, for example, to remove like a canceled or expired or sold listing, I don't think there's a way to do that, and it's a good thing, I believe, because it reports, right?
So Remax Europe and LLC don't want listings to be cancelled. They stay for statistical purposes on a system.
Yeah, so they don't want to be deleted, is what you mean, right?
Yeah, exactly.